Welcome to Business Line's State of the Economy podcast, where you'll find insight, analysis, and the story behind the numbers.
Hi, welcome to this edition of State of Economy podcast on defense. With maritime zone hotting up in Indo-Pacific, we at Hindu Business Line decided to engage Captain Nikunj Parashar, founder and CEO of Sagar Defence Engineering Private Limited, to know his views on cutting-edge naval solutions, defense startup as a whole, their success and challenges. His own startup firm has come up with niche platform-agnostic technology solutions for forces, especially Indian Navy. The latest was it signed a contract under IDEXX DIO's Sprint initiative of Ministry of Defense for autonomous weaponized boat swarms. To talk about Captain Parashar himself, he is a merchant marine and alumni of IIM Ahmedabad. He is also a recipient of some accolades as he struggles his way through since quitting his job abroad more than 8 years ago to plunge into Indian defense sector. Sagar Defence got National Award for Robotics in 2022 from Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade and from National Security Guard, an elite force of Union Home Ministry, for developing improvised explosive device. Welcome to the podcast, Captain Nikunj Parashar. Let me begin with you are a product of Atmanirbharta in defense sector. Since inception in 2015, Sagar Defence Engineering Private Limited has emerged as one of the promising defense startups. Take us briefly through your innovation journey.
Thank you, Dalip. I came to India on when I heard about the Make in India program. And this is something which pushed me to quit my good, handsomely paid job across and come here and start Sagar Defence Engineering. Being a sailor myself, sailed out for 16 years, the core interest was always autonomous shipping. And the first takers of autonomous maritime technology had to be the defense forces here in India. So from 2015 to almost 2017, we pitched across to various organizations in the country. And at start, the acceptance level was low, but there was a positive attitude in the armed forces in terms of Make in India policy. So somewhere around 2018, we got the first success. And this is where we built the first radio control target boats for the Indian Navy. Once we built the first radio control target boats, that took off. And from there, we started digressing into different domains in maritime in terms of aviation in maritime, where we have ship-based drones which land and take off from warships. Parallelly, we are doing unmanned surface vehicle as of now under the IDEXX program, and then the underwater vehicle. Now, in all the three domains, we have been able to work due to our platform-agnostic technology, that is a hardware and embedded software for same, which has been built here in India. Now, this helped us to scale in all the three domains, and the acceptance have been there very strongly from the three armed forces.
Can you talk us through about your key projects in terms of innovation?
Okay. Now, generally, if you take a boat which is manned has three systematic problems. First is a fuel, second is fatigue, and third is endurance. How long could be a manned boat or a ship could be out at sea? So what we went about is we developed the country's first unmanned surface vehicle, which could be controlled from few hundreds of kilometers. Now, the innovative part in this was not actually the boat, but the technology, which is the brain behind it in running that platform. So this is like a manless boat where it's fully autonomous, has a radar system, has a weapon system, which is integrated to a command control system, which is sitting almost hundreds of kilometers onshore. And that helps us to go to the next level. So this is the core tech there. This autonomy part, the collision avoidance, the mission guidance system is the core tech which helped us to actually develop these boats. And when we build the platform under IDEXX project, now we have got an order, we have got an AON for more than 300 crore for this.
Okay. Any other contracts up your sleeve or some niche product in your innovation lab?
Yes. So as I said at start, that our technology is platform agnostic. So it's immaterial to our hardware and the embedded software, that whether it is a boat or whether it's an underwater vehicle or a human flying platform, that's a drone. So right now we have two more separate AONs. One AON is for underwater vehicle for mine countermeasure, and the third accordance of necessity approval has been given across for logistic carrying drones up to 150 kgs, ship based. So this is where our strength is. We understand maritime. So in the drone sector also we entered the maritime sector. Now if you see the leading players like IdeaForge and Hysteria across, they have been building platforms which land and take off from a fixed location. What we realized is, it would be very difficult for us to compete these bigger players in that market.
Mhm.
So we went and we ran away from the competition, and with our technology prowess, we entered into the maritime domain. This is where Navy gave us a very strong helping hand, and we went out for trial over a year, and the whole tech was developed on those lines, and then finally the system got inducted with the Indian Navy.
So, do you wish to continue with naval platforms, or are you thinking of offering other to Air Force and Navy as well? Sorry, Army.
We have actually moved into Army. We have just recently completed high-speed tank-based landing and takeoff trials, and
Mm.
also armored vehicle trials. Now, this platform being so agnostic, it's a material that, whether it's a maritime platform or it's a ground-based vehicle where we are operating, we are also looking at the export market with the European counterparts in the commercial sector. So if you look in the North Sea and especially in the Europe, there are huge wind farms, and inspection of a wind farm is a very classic difficult terrain task to carry out on a regular basis where the weather condition is also pretty bad. So this is where Sagar Defence is taking a leap from a defense sector into army and navy. We are also jumping into the commercial sector to the European nations.
What is prompting you to digress into commercial sector? Is it because there's more scope to do business?
So there are two things. If you see generally, technology has a lifespan. In the electronic sector, technology changes every 3 months to 6 months of period of time. Secondly, the technology what we have developed is novel. That means when we say it, there are hardly 2 to 3 players globally which has this capability of landing and taking off from a high-speed craft. So when you have a novel technology, it also helps us to explore other markets. First is the first mover advantage is what is going to come to us in the commercial grade. And in commercial, we are able to give a mil standard redundancy, a mil standard reliability with a lower cost. So that gives us an upper advantage against the global player. And I think this is what the statement of Sagar Defense Engineering is also, that we say intelligence open to ideas. That's a tagline. So
Mm.
it's an idea which we are trying to push across in the commercial market, where the drone operations could become more easy and more safe across. And in commercial market, if you lower down the capex and opex, nothing can beat that. So we see that a huge opportunity, and I come from maritime community, which I understand pretty well. So as the technology has been built here in the defense sector, being realized well, the reliability is very high, and inductions are happening, as we speak, as of now, also of the second phase. We see the commercial market as a very huge opening parallel.
Since you were talking about venturing into a European market, can you tell us, have you firmed up any sort of deal or are in the process of doing that?
So I have a Dutch office already. We are based out of Rotterdam. We are supported also parallelly by the Dutch government. So in this scenario, what we are talking is we are talking to a few big players in the Netherlands across and a player in United Kingdom for that.
So now coming back to larger defense startup ecosystem. So IDEXX has been a good initiative, but do you think there is a need to enhance allocation through IDEXX from the existing best pitch of rupees, I think 10 crore, is that right?
So what is happening is IDEXX is actually a fantastic opportunity, and when we are looking at IDEXX, from 1.5 crore to a prime contract of 10 crore, which they have increased up. It's amazing. Now, the other part is, as companies like us who have slightly evolved in that scenario, they are able to execute certain projects in a very big way. When we look at smaller startups and very small startup where they have to do their own contribution of parallel 1.5 crore, that is where the investment comes into play. So now recently IDEXX has also launched something for the investment scale, where the investors can come across to these startups, and when they get a grant from IDEXX, they can parallelly raise the money from there. So overall the project is moving in the right direction. Certain ticket size, and if you ask me as a startup, I would always say we need more money. 1.5 crore should be somewhere around 3.5 crore. That's always there. And as a startup, I would say that I was always need more money. But as of now, the way government has started off, it's just fantastic, and the way it is moving on is really great. So the step has been positive. As we get more positive results out of IDEXX challenges, I think they would look at raising that bar in terms of funding across.
Venture capitalists, I read, abroad, they have been investing much in startups. For instance, I think, in US, where, VCs have put some, 135 billion dollars from 2016 to 22. Is there a trust deficit here because we don't find much VCs coming to assist the startups?
Absolutely not. It is not a trust deficit. And for example, if you look at the India-US partnership also from 2015 to 16 to 18, where we are now as a major tie-up. The question comes across, why would a US VC invest in an Indian defense startup? We are one of the largest importers across. So why would a VC from the European or the US side would invest? Their ESG policies do not allow them to invest at all. You go to any sovereign fund based out of Canada or from Gulf, they would not invest. So this is a challenge. We need to have our own ecosystem of funding. We need to have an alternate investment funding here in India so that our startups can be supported. Because if you look pragmatically across, where India is turning from an importer to an exporter, and the defense business is the largest business across globally. Industries are fueled by defense business and wars. So this is something, it's not to do with the deficit, but it is the countries and the people here have to look at alternate investment funds, setting up those funds across for the startups here.
So what is your prescription for that, given your experience?
I would say that funds like DST, TDB, where they launch their challenges and they look at funding, or SIDBI, matter of fact, an alternate fund should be set up from them, where people like us who are getting these accordance of necessity approvals of over 500 crores should get direct funding from these organizations, and the timeline from 6 months to 1 year should be delayed should be reduced to a month to 2 months, because there is a customer, there is an order. How do I execute it? It's just the funding gap.
Mhm.
And if these organizations itself go ahead and come on board as funding in terms of equity and debt across, I think the problem would be solved right away, because the government certainly has these money to go ahead in this sector.
So, beside funding, what other changes you think should be brought into Atmanirbharta policy for next generation reform? Because we are still to innovate core defense systems. So that's a major area. Unless until we do that, we are actually not self-reliant in true sense.
Very true, Dalip. And for that, I would say you should visit Sagar Defence Engineering to see us, how we are working in therein. I think there are two things in this. The first angle is, what is the customer trust on you, and second is, how much are you willing to put in your efforts. As our mindset has always been, buy India. As an individual, if we see a good European or a West technology therein, we would bring it here, label it made in India, and sell it across to the armed forces. We have to also understand that our forces are fighting war every given day, low intensity conflicts happening across our borders. So they need reliable systems. Currently, through the programs like IDEXX, which is happening across, and the challenges which are being launched across by the forces have come in agreement that they're ready to test it, and go walk aside besides you in your endeavor. Important is, as a startup, we should not look at short-term goals. We should be there in a longer game, I would say, and that's where the development will happen. Now the ecosystems are only available to the prime. So if you look at the likes of L&Ts and the Bharat Forge or Adani's, they have their own ecosystem because they have the money to invest and develop that. But smaller startups like us does not have that ecosystem. And where the government has opened up, certain DRDO labs where you could go and carry out testing. But imagine somebody based out in Kanyakumari and want to do a trial in Northern Command, the cost which is across being bared. So some incentives at the state level and the central level has to be brought in this scenario. And if that happens, I'm sure we would scale to much larger heights.
What are your expectations from the coming budget? Would you like to have an increased allocation on R&D? What are your thoughts on it?
I would say we should have a excellent increase in innovation on R&D. IDEXX should come with a program parallelly where we could get an opportunity where the success rate is only 30%. And this is a scare. As Indians, we always feel that whenever there is a positive policy, there are negative parts also. somebody may misuse the whole policy. But getting into challenges where success rate is only 30% and such high risk maneuvers, if that happens, I think the sky is the limit. So increase in the R&D budget funding, and especially for the programs like IDEXX should be there, and it should be earmarked at much higher across, as we understand in this scenario.
See, startups also need a industry support. Do you think bodies like CII, SIDM are able to voice concerns or address issues of startups?
Yeah, SIDM is doing a fantastic job in this scenario across, and they have been working with the Army, with the Navy, and the Air Force on regular basis. It's across. Now, these bodies should also have people across who belongs to certain startups, which startups are not at growth stage, but which startups are also at the seed stage. And if these member people can become their members and be part of the governing council, I think that can solve, personally, that can bring the ground reality on board to these bodies. This is there across.
Yeah, precisely that, because we don't get to hear from SIDM or for that matter CI anything on defense startup. There are no hardly any basic details about defense ecosystem with them. So that's why that prompted me to ask this question.
There are many things which are happening. SIDM is doing a lot of work. The only problem is the awareness level, where if you look at TDAC from the Indian Navy has been doing a fantastic awareness level
Yeah.
programs, where every week they have these sessions with the industries and with the startups, and they're doing a strong hand holding. I would say about, especially about Navy here, and same thing with ADB in terms from the Army. Now the problem what I also see with the startup is and हम यानी we say in Hindi कि आप घोड़े को पानी तक लेके जा सकते हैं, घोड़े को पानी खुद पीना है. So people have to also put in their efforts to understand where this is happening across, how it is happening across. Because I quit a job from abroad, came here in India in 2015. Make in India was just a website, and just a single page there. And today, if you see Make in India, it's over 200 people and a strong team which is working in. So people also will have to move up from their cushion chair and really slog themselves out on the field. And if you do that, I think sky is the limit. The defense sector is the next sector in coming time.
When do you think India will actually become Atmanirbhar in true sense?
I think with Honorable Prime Minister set up, the date is perfectly fine of 2047, which he is looking at. The reason why is there are going to be failures. Possibly Sagar Defence could be one of the biggest failures in coming time. We may not cope up. But these failures will also bring in learning across. The forces sitting at the headquarters and the forces which is out on the ground, there is always a difference in their thought processes. So when the headquarter thinks of new way to induct, the people on ground would find them as a headache. So the mindsets changing would need to happen. So the time of the Amrit Kal is perfect, and if you look at, you give yourself a decade, you will see a different India in that sense.
But there's another issue which I would like to sort of seek your views on. India is world's largest arms importer. Why do you think we are unable to export our defense systems in the way we can? Because there's also equally an example of South Korea. South Korea is emerging as a arms exporter. What are your thoughts?
And if you look, let's look at the geopolitics. If you look at the geopolitics in this scenario, like the whole shift from Atlantic has now come across to the IOR region, and the rise of the Pacific Rim, which has come across.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at Korea, where it is exporting to and which region it is exporting to, you would get your answers. When you look at India, we have such beautiful neighbors on our side that we had no option. And the Atmanirbharta vision, has just started off in few years down the line. So our mindsets, and if you look at the semiconductor technology, which had kicked off during the Honorable Rajiv Gandhi's time, again it died its own slow death, where we were one of the leading countries in terms of research. And today we are still, we are on the back foot across, and now we are trying to open that domain awareness space. So if you look in that scenario, you need to have a strong semiconductor industry across. And we are slightly much slow in terms of years behind it. So that would take time to build up. Moment you have the semiconductor industry, I think your core defense technologies would go in. And that is the reason why, as of now, the government vision is around 70% in non-kinematic and 30% in kinematic technologies. Because in armed forces, kinematic technologies would require state-of-the-art semiconductors and orbital sensors, across which we do not have the capability as of now. So we need to have the semiconductor technology and manufacturing hub here in the country, and think that would help us to accelerate our defense market.
Do you also think that the larger defense companies, the big boys of the sector, they should also be hand-holding smaller players to take them along? So, but there is also a concern among the startups and all that. Know that all the big players, they are also getting into MSME and that domain also, and eating into the pie of smaller players. Would you agree to that?
No, I would not agree to this part for sure, that they are getting into the smaller MSME sectors and eating a pie into it. As of now, all the way till 300 crore, they get to AMD exempted. What is happening on the other sense is that some startups who have gone to a stage of larger players in the market, we feel that there is a sense where the business is not being done in the fair way. But the larger players, I don't see that problem happening in that scenario. The larger players, I would feel, if they're doing what they're capable of. They have the capability of investing 10,000 crores into business. They're going to invest that. So I don't see that a larger player comes down in a contract which is below 300 crores or below that. As long as if that contract has a potential for a bigger upscale. I think the startups have to realize that there is a need of the hour also. When you look at the government, at the armed forces, are we able to fulfill that need of the hour? And if we are able to fulfill that need of the hour, how we are going to scale in that manner? So this is what I said. There are two sides of the coin, that I may able to fulfill the first contract, but how do I scale it up across? So where is the funding for it? And in that scenario, this is where the larger players could come on board and support you. Now, once they support you, then there are two options comes across. Either they help you to scale, or they acquire you. So I'll have to keep all your options, and I think that's business, and the business happens across this way globally also. So I think it's rather than crying in this scenario, if you fight it out well, the opportunity is used.
And finally, Captain Parashar, do you think will you be able to share your book of accounts for this FY and your projections for next?
I think my book of accounts are available on ROC Dalip. So you just 50 rupees if you file, you will be able to download from there. And our projections for the coming year, we would be doing something above almost 45 crores, and in coming time possibly above 200 crores.
Thanks, Captain Parashar, for taking time out and joining us on the podcast to share your views about your company, about the defense startup ecosystem, and best wishes for your future venture. And we hope to see you again when you grow. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dalip. And people like you are the torch bearers for small startups like us. So please keep doing this.